So this is an old video from 2 years ago or a year ago. And it was done on a free program, so it doesn't have all the features that my new program has. So things are a little bit glitchy in it, but try to follow along. This was a project that we did in class as well as by hand. So we needed to do some things on the computer, and then we'd print it out, and then we'd finish it by hand. A lot of the steps we did a tracing step where we cleaned up the design by hand and we print it out, and then we traced over it with tracing paper. So we're not going to do that step. So I've added a new little part of the video in to kind of fill in the blanks on that. So hope you enjoy it. Email me if you have any questions. All right, so there's a few things that I wanted to address in my previous video. I created that last year, and it wasn't on the best program. So let me see if I can find a Danny Devito. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of fill in the blanks of some of the stuff that I did. So first thing, I'm downloading an image. I went to Google. I saved the image. Now I'm going to open Photoshop. And the old videos were fine, except that it was supposed to be done by hand, some of it. So instead of doing it by hand, we're going to be doing it we're going to do it all in Photoshop. So I'm going to open my document, my image that I had. And what I want to do is I want to select this. So just like previously, I selected it. I use my quick selection. So you can hit your W key, and that'll give you your quick selection. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of trace his head. Again, I'm going to hold down Alt or Option on my Mac to get rid of the spaces that I don't want. So this makes a good selection. And a lot of times when you're doing make my brush smaller by hitting my left bracket next to the P key. A lot of times when you're doing something like this, you gotta have to guess on which way is the best method. So I'm gonna duplicate this. I'm gonna try out a few methods. So the first one is I duplicated what I had selected, and that's just that the person. But there's other ways to select things. So we can I'm gonna go back to my background layer. I'm going to select, and there's one in here called subject. You can try that as well. That might be a little bit quicker. So subject, it gets most of it already. And then I can go in with my quick selection and get rid of these other points just like before. But maybe if you're not that steady with the mouse, that might be a good way. Another thing you could do, let's say if it has a solid background, you can come down here to your eraser and you can click on background eraser tool. And this allows you to delete the background. I think it works by selecting whatever you selected. It'll just keep selecting that same. Oh, actually, that's a magic eraser. So if I select whatever I have selected, it'll just keep selecting that thing. This one's not that good of a method, but the final way that I would do would just be to trace it with my magic with my mouse. So I just have my lasso tool and I'm just tracing it. And again, this is a stencil, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Layer via copy. So it looks pretty good. Next thing I want to do is I want to go up to filter, and I'm going to go down to my filter gallery as I did in the previous video. Crosshatch. So I'm going to click on sketch, and I usually like charcoal or photocopy. So either of those works well. Photocopy has a nice look to it, and you can add more detail or less detail. The idea is you don't want it to be too grainy. You just kind of want the outlines of things. So I'm going to click photocopy, click OK, and it gives me a good looking outline, but it doesn't have the shape of the head around. And I have a lot of extra stuff here. So I'm going to click on image adjustments, go to levels, and I'm going to try to take out the grays but increase the black. So I'm going to drag this down so my grays become kind of white, and that way I'm getting rid of those. but I still don't have that edge around Danny DeVito. So I'm gonna go back to my duplicated one if you have a duplicated. If not, you're gonna have to go back in your history and do these steps again. So I can go back to, or let's say, layer via copy right here. And I can duplicate this layer by hitting Control J. I'm gonna go back to filter gallery, say filter gallery, do the same effects that I did before. And if I wanna adjust my levels, go back to adjustment, levels, and taking out the gray, adding some black to it. All right, so it gives me that. But I need to get that background. So I'm gonna click on the duplicated one and we'll go to adjustments. This time I'm gonna go to threshold and see what I have in threshold. Threshold gives me an all black shirt and gives me a nice thing around here, but I'm still missing the edge around the head. To fix that, what I might do is, like I said in the previous video, I did it by hand. But for this one, what I might do is I'm just gonna hit Control, select my hair. So I selected all my hair. I'm gonna go select, modify, border. And I'm gonna add a border to it, maybe 25 pixel border. See how big that is? 25 is a little bit too large, so let me do 10 pixels. So modify, border, I'm gonna do 10 pixels. All right, it's a little bit thick still. Modify, 6 pixels, let's try that. So that looks pretty good. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna paint in that edge that I need around his hair. So I'll make my brush a little bit bigger. I come up here to brushes, hardness should be at 100%, and I'm just gonna paint in the edge that I have here so that the hair goes all the way around. All right, and then I can do it for a shirt as well. I think in the video he has a black shirt, which is nice, so you can add that back in. I'm just gonna draw that back in. If you let go like I just did on accident using my mouse, I'm holding shift and I can just add that piece back in that I left, that I lost when I let go. All right, and if I were to add this into black, I could take my paintbrush and make it really big and make it fill it with black, or I could just leave it as white. I can't remember exactly what the example has, but this is kind of where I want to go. For those other areas where it's still gray in the design, what I'm going to do is just zoom in and I'm just going to paint those out with white. So flip my colors. X flips your colors. So I'm just going to paint those so that they're a little bit smoother. Because you want this to look like a stencil, so you don't want to have a lot of extra. Everything should be kind of smooth. And then after this, we're going to take this into in Illustrator. So once we're in Illustrator, we're going to clean it up even more. But trying to get rid of all the extra details. Stencils are very clean and they don't have a lot of detail. So anything that's gray, I'm getting rid of. The black areas I can keep, even things like those little, some dots maybe. If it adds to the design, keep it. If it takes away from it or makes it look kind of weird, you can delete it. So this is my design, and I'm gonna take this into Illustrator next, and hopefully this kind of fills in the blank spaces in the video.
Alright, so the next step is, I just got done tracing my image, and I scanned it in. Now I'm gonna open that image in Illustrator. So I went down to my bottom, I went down here to the bottom of my screen, clicked Adobe Illustrator, opened Illustrator. Now I'm going to open my file. So I'm going to go File, Open. I'm going to find that image. So I'm just going to flatten layers to a single image. So I have my image, my drawing. So now what I'm going to do is, I notice I got rid of all the little dots that I didn't want. So I'm going to click on my black arrow, click the page, and then I'm going to click Image Trace. And you can change the settings right here, but I just want to do default black and white. So now I have my black and white, and what it does is it smooths out all the edges that I needed to smooth out a little bit more, and it makes it dark. You lose all the marker strokes and everything. So I'm gonna click edit, copy. So I'm gonna copy this now. I'm gonna go back to Photoshop, and I'm gonna do my next changes. All right, where I'm gonna build my background.